Hello yogis, welcome back. We're going to talk today about pranayama. So we'll talk about what it is, why we do it, and we'll go through a few techniques that you can try out yourself. So pranayama is broken up into two words, prana and ayama. So when we think of prana basically means breath, life, energy, vitality. And a good way of thinking of prana is it's the life force or the energy that is all around us that we bring into our bodies. And so ayama basically means to like stretch, expand, to kind of increase the use of. So when we think of pranayama, we put those two things together. The idea of pranayama is to work on the breath, to bring life force or energy into the body, and to extend and expand the body's ability to take that in and utilize it. So, if you're just thinking of the nuts and bolts of it, bringing oxygen into the body, and then increasing the body's capacity to use that oxygen and to get it into the cells and utilize it in a way where we can get the maximum benefit from each breath. If you're talking about it in a more sort of spiritual, philosophical ways, then when we look at prana is the life force. We bring it in, and so when we bring this life force into our body, we flow into our bodies. It passes its way through all the nadis, through the chakras, and it helps to activate and energize the whole body and bring in about our life and our life force. So without the breath, there is no life. So the point of pranayama essentially is to bring about a utilization of this energy and to harness this energy and bring it into the body. And there are loads of different types of techniques that we can do to help us to increase our capacity and our utilization of it. So there's a couple different practices we'll try today. The first one is actually not strictly a pranayama technique, but it is part of the kind of set of things that you can do, and it's called Kapalabhati, and it's a cleansing breath. So we've got quite a large capacity in our lungs. There's quite a lot of litres in there, I think 1 to 2 litres from memory, and most people when they breathe very shallowly. So if you're just sitting now, just without actually trying to change anything, just take note of where your breath is. Maybe you might want to put a hand on the belly, hand on the chest, and just breathe in and out a few times. Just noticing where your breath moves more. You might like to put your hands around your ribs. Do you feel them expanding outwards or inwards? A lot of people find that they're quite stuck in this region, and especially actually if you've had children, the whole process of being pregnant causes quite a lot of change in the body, and quite often those muscles that normally move actually become sort of seized and fixed because of the big belly that pushes everything around. So just taking note. So what we want to try and do is we want to try and bring a deeper breath into the lungs, and we want to try and increase the turnover of the air in our lungs, and we want to try and get that old stale air that's sort of sitting in the lower portion of our lungs and kind of release that. So one of the first practices that you might like to do if you sit down to do a pranayama session is to do Kapalabhati. And it's a very strange looking kind of process. So hopefully I'll talk it through so it makes sense. But essentially what we want to do is we want to drive the old air out of our lungs and bring in new air so that we can kind of turn it over a bit better. So to start this process, we sit in a nice comfortable position. You might like to be cross-legged or you might like to be kneeling, depending on what you feel more comfortable doing. And we inhale deeply, and then we exhale as much as we can. We want to try and drive as much of the air out. Some people even find that at the very end doing a little kind of sound helps to drive out the last of the air. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pump the lungs, and we're going to do this by using our stomach muscles, and we're going to kind of like imagine you're like kind of coughing out the air in your lungs. So you're going to do this continuously, and if you've been quite practiced at this, you'll do this 50 times, and then you'll have a break where you'll breathe in deeply and then exhale all the air again, and then you'll hold and you'll sit there for maybe up to 20-30 seconds, depending what you can withstand, without any air in your lungs, and breathe in again. Bring your breathing to a natural rhythm, and then we'll repeat the process. So you might just do it 2 or 3 times before you start your pranayama. So we'll go through it, we'll give it a go. It's a bit hard on a video. Hopefully you can kind of see very well. So I'm sitting up nice and tall, and I'm going to breathe in. I might not be able to talk actually. I might just do this and see if I can do a talk over on the video. So breathing in, and then we're going to breathe out, and then we're going to pump. I'm just going to do it maybe like 15 times, and then I will breathe in, breathe out, and hold. Okay. So breathing in. So, looks a bit strange, but it's highly effective at bringing that turnaround of the oxygen that's in your lungs. So when I do this myself, I normally do a couple of rounds, sometimes 3 rounds of this, and that's the beginning of my pranayama practice. You don't have to do this at all, okay? It's just something that you may like to try. Another alternative, which is really lovely, is actually yogic breaths. And I would normally recommend that if you're new to this, to start doing this lying down, but for the sake of the video and ease, I'm going to do it sitting up. So yogic breaths are basically using each part of the chest cavity and your diaphragm to ensure that you are properly inflating and deflating your lungs. So there are loads of different ways that this gets taught, but what we kind of want to think about is inhaling deeply so that we have our belly rise, then our ribs, and then our chest rise. And then as we exhale, the chest comes down, the ribs come back in, and the belly comes in. And we completely expel the air. And we continue this in a rhythmic motion. And we try and make it so that the inhale length and the exhale length are very, very similar. Obviously, it doesn't have to be perfect when you're starting off, but if you want to, you could even use counting if it helps you. So we start with just sit comfortably or lie down comfortably. We might put up our hands onto our belly, onto our chest, and we inhale, belly, ribs, chest, exhale, ribs, chest, belly. And then inhale, belly, ribs, chest, exhale, chest, ribs, belly. Sorry, I think I said it wrong the first time. And we continue that motion. Now, I've been taught this in 2 different ways when I've, in my training over the years. For myself personally, I prefer to inhale, belly, ribs, chest, exhale, belly, ribs, chest. For me, that works better and it makes me feel like I'm completely expanding and deflating. But some people, and depending on what documents you read, some traditional documents say belly, ribs, chest, and then chest, ribs, belly. Just go with what feels natural for you. At the end of the day, the main thing that we're trying to do in this yogic breath is to expand all areas that are around our lungs to allow for maximum inflation and then maximum deflation. So we're really trying to use that diaphragm, really drawing the breath down deep into the belly. Some people call it belly breathing, and I just want to clarify here with belly breathing, because really traditionally, well, not even traditionally, from a physiological kind of point, belly breathing is going to put strain onto the muscles in your rectus abdominis. So you want to be careful with doing that. So the point is not to inflate your belly so that it comes out like a pregnant belly. And I've actually seen videos where people have said, make your belly look like you're a pregnant belly. You don't want to be doing that because we don't want to strain the muscles. What we're trying to do is actually have a 360-degree expansion of our lungs. So if we're breathing into the belly, what we're doing is we're pressurizing onto those muscles, and we're expanding our belly, but what about the ribs? They're not really doing much. So what is a better kind of way of thinking this is diaphragm pulls down, ribs expand 360 degrees, and chest expands. So inhale, into the diaphragm, into the ribs, into the chest. And then exhaling, all of those compress back in. So if you have had a pregnancy and you find that it's difficult for you to do this, there are a few exercises that you can do to help expand and open up into the ribs. A good one actually is to start by lying down. I'll just move to show you. So starting by lying down, bring yourself into a kind of a crouched position and bring your hands onto your ribs. And what you'll find is if you have any problems, you can test them by putting your hands on your ribs and just breathing in deeply and out. And if you find there's not a great deal of movement in your ribs, or you find like the front moves but not the back, that gives you a clue as to what you need to do. And then from there, in order to expand the movement in your ribs and unstick those muscles, if you bring your knees right up to your chest, which is a bit of a strange thing to do, and then kind of huddle forward, you can expand into the back of the ribs by breathing deeply into that spot, and you can kind of move yourself around, keeping on doing that, and eventually expand into all areas, and doing it on both sides of the body. So that would be a good way to kind of loosen up that ribs, that interstitial muscles in your ribs. So that's the yogic breath, okay, and that's a fantastic one, and it's a very calming breath, very sort of soothing breath. So it's a really good one to do, particularly if you've done an asana workout and then you kind of want to have a little bit of pranayama before your relaxation at the end. It's a nice one to do after you finish your inversions, wherever you finish your practice. Lie down, do some yogic breaths, and then move your way into your relaxation. It's also a really nice way to start your practice as well, because it helps you to increase the oxygen moving through the body, which allows you to have more energy in preparation for your asana work. So another breath that's really useful, and it's a very soothing kind of breath, is the 4-4, the box breathing. And many people will have done this if they've done other kinds of psychological techniques, even cognitive behavioural therapy, all those kinds of things. A lot of the mindfulness movement, they do a lot of this sort of stuff as well. So the 4-4 movement is very simple. Literally, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and continuing on in that rhythm. And again, however you do it is actually up to you. So you might like to lie down, you might like to sit up, going with whatever works for you. So breathing in, so I like to kind of think of it as inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. So quite a slow rhythmic movement, and bringing in some of that syncing sort of motion of the rhythm helps to also bring our heart rate into that syncing rhythm. Another good breath, which is really sort of good for opening up the nadis. So I'll post another video in the future about the nadis, about what they look like, about the chakras, but just to kind of give you pathway, an understanding of how this sort of works. There are pathways that come from the nostrils down the body through the chakras, and then there's a central nadi that comes back up as well. I'll explain that in another video. But anyway, so this next pranayama technique helps to open up those two sides of the two different pathways that come through the middle. And so this is basically an alternate nostril breath. So to do this, we have our hands in a particular position, which kind of looks a bit strange really, but it's kind of like that. And there's different people do it differently. Some people put their fingers in the middle where the third eye is, and then they use these two fingers. I personally find it more comfortable just to hold them there and then just to block like that. But essentially what you do is you're breathing in through one nostril and then exhaling through the opposite, then in through that side, exhaling through the opposite. And you use your fingers to block off the one that is not inhaling or exhaling. So for example, a round of this would look like this. So inhaling, exhaling through the other. Inhale, block it off, exhale. And that would be one full round. And so, I would recommend maybe anywhere between 5 and 10 rounds of that, and you will find that the more you do it, you naturally start to calm and soothe yourself as well. If you find that you get quite a lot of blockages in your nose, it depends on which one. One is the lunar side, one is the solar side, and it can indicate whether you need more water or more food. But another kind of preparatory practice that you could do if you find that difficult, obviously blow your nose, but another one you could do is actually just breathing in and out constantly through one nostril and then breathing in and out through the other one to help remove the blockages, and then moving on to the alternate nostril breathing. So that's quite a few little techniques there. Maybe one more that you can do as an extension onto your alternate nose breathing is to actually use a count in there. So if you're finding that you've got the rhythm of the alternate nostril breathing going pretty well, you can add in a count so that you're using an even rhythm. So for example, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 4, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 4. If you find that's pretty good, then you could inhale 5, exhale 5, inhale 5, exhale 5. Obviously this depends on your starting point. Some people start at 3. It just depends on your lung capacity and how comfortable you feel with this kind of motion. If you would like to advance it even more so, then another thing to do is to inhale for say 4 and then exhale for double that count, so 8. So inhaling for 4, exhale for 8, inhale for 4, exhale for 8, and so on. And doing that as you kind of feel more comfortable, you can progress that as well. So inhale for 5, exhale for 10, inhale for 5, exhale for 10. And if you're feeling really comfortable with this whole process, it's another stage of this. It's a different practice, but it's kind of using the same idea, is to add a breath hold. So breath holds are really fantastic for the body, and using it kind of seems uncomfortable and something that we don't like to do, but actually using a little bit of hypoxia can be a really powerful thing for increasing our utilization of the oxygen and the conversion of oxygen in the body. So for this particular kind of breath work, you can inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8, and that would be kind of like another extension that you could add onto this. So that kind of gives you quite a few little things that you can kind of work on. There is one more thing which I'll add, which is kind of like a favorite for mine for clearing the mind. It's a bit of a funny practice. And it's called Brahmari, and it's called the bee breath, which is really appropriate because at the moment I don't think you can hear it on the video, but there's like a huge hum in the background here of all of the little bees and things going off. So Brahmari is essentially called the bee breath, and it's a fantastic kind of like noisy exhale, which you feel in your mind, and it feels a bit almost like bees are in your brain kind of going brrr. But what you do for this one, and it depends how comfortable you are, you essentially contract down the senses by blocking them off, and then you exhale by making a or something similar, whatever comes comfortably to you, for the entire exhale. So you would you block your ears off first, and then you would place your index fingers, it's a bit hard when you're doing it without the, there we go, place your index fingers up onto your third eye, and then your hands kind of like your fingers come across to block the senses. So some of them block over the eyes, eventually some block onto the nose, but you don't block the nose until you've had your breath, obviously, and then the rest of them just sort of like sit on the face. So what you do is you breathe in through the nose, and then as you exhale, you make a hum. And obviously that's not a very long hum. You do it as long and as slow and as drawn out as you can. And if you repeat this quite a few times, even up to sort of like 5 minutes worth, it has a very calming, soothing effect on the mind. And it's a fantastic one to lead into your meditation, because when you try to meditate, obviously we are trying not to allow ourselves to become focused on our thoughts. We're kind of trying to allow them to kind of drift in and out, and then eventually to find a stillness within the mind. So the Brahmari practice actually, if you want to, you could even try it really. If you are doing this and then trying to think at the same time, that just don't work, because you've just got so much humming and buzzing going on in your head. It's a lovely way to sort of like get into that kind of feel that you want to have before you start your meditation. So there are quite a few pranayama techniques. There are obviously loads and loads more, and I'll make more videos as I go along with my budget cut rate kind of videos. But hopefully you're getting some use out of this, and enjoy your pranayama.